Hello, Internet Capitalists, and welcome back to, I think, episode 17 of our podcast. It's incredible. Ben, welcome to you, coming to us again from the headquarters of BlackRock, New York City,
Yeah,
Manhattan.
fun fact for people who don't know, how would they know? But I used to live right next to the BlackRock building. So I didn't see Larry Fink ever, but I presumably saw the people who brought us the ETFs walk into work every day. But not anymore. I don't live there anymore. But nonetheless, BlackRock is still down here. So how are you doing though?
That's, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Up early on you know what today is? Today is a Chamber of Commerce day in Bloomington, Indiana. We have all day. Going to get a little bit of haircut today, and then get ready for the Indiana Hoosiers versus UCLA Bruins tonight. Big test for the Hoosiers, but we're excited to watch that. Got my IU hat on with my hopeful official coffee sponsor we would like, Inkwell Coffee Mug. Having that this morning. So I'm ready to go. Big week. Exciting stuff happened at the end of the week. Started out slow, but got faster.
Yeah, 100%. We have a lot to dive into, but I wanted to start with something. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So, I
Okay.
listened to a conversation on Bankless with the economist Peter Schiff, and he is a
Yep.
crypto, actually more of a Bitcoin critic. He actually believes that blockchains and crypto have some utility, but does not like Bitcoin, which is interesting because you usually see
Mm-hmm.
the opposite from critics. They'll give some credence to Bitcoin, but not other crypto assets. He's the opposite. He really likes gold. He's like a huge gold fanatic. He has a gold company. He has a bunch of gold and talks about it all the time. But his point on Bankless was it boiled down to this basically. He does not like calling Bitcoin digital gold, and he says that it cannot have any value at all because it's not a physical thing with industrial value. He says that gold, of course, has this industrial value, so there's like a baseline of demand, and then of course it doesn't trade on the market based on just those supply and demand forces from the industrial aspect. It's also from its monetary quality, its utility as a store value asset, and things like this. And he says that Bitcoin cannot have any monetary value because it does not also have the industrial value. What do you think when you hear that? Because I
I
disagree
think
with
Peter.
it, but
I think Peter Schiff is dead wrong. I think he's looking at it from the perspective he wants to look at it. But I would go back a level. Bitcoin, just like gold, takes resources to create. That's that's the main thing that imbues it with its value. It takes a resource. It takes electricity to create. Now, if he's going to say, "Well, you can only do it by physically digging stuff up," all right, that's a Luddite representation. But I 100% disagree. Bitcoin has value because the energy that went into creating it, just like the energy that went into creating gold. And who's to say that at some point Bitcoin won't have more of a use than it does now? And in fact, when gold was discovered, it had value, but did it have an industrial use then? No.
it's a good
So
point.
once again, short term thinking.
Yeah, I actually really like that point that you made because that's a really good point. Because he goes and gold bulls and gold advocates who use this as like anti Bitcoin type of take say that it's used in all these electronics. Like you have to have gold in electronics and these different. That's not how it started. Whenever it was bootstrapped like thousands of years ago and it's been used for thousands of years, it did not have these properties. It was literally just because it was a precious metal that had these qualities of fixed supply, of it's difficult to forge it, all these things. And Bitcoin's the same way. And maybe it's in the bootstrapping phase. And then whenever you see products like CB Bitcoin out of Coinbase on Base Chain, that's additional demand. And then the last thing I want to note here is that Bitcoin is the way I see it is that it's more of a like a macro geopolitical asset. Like it is an asset that governments will want on their balance sheet because it's a non-confiscatable asset. It's very easy to transmit, easy to store. You don't have to have huge gold reserves, gold vaults. And this is one of the main demand drivers over time. And then as these developed economies and most of the Western countries keep debasing their currencies over time, Bitcoin's going to be really in high demand from a lot of central banks. And I think that's where it gets its bottom
Yeah.
base demand.
And Ben, I just want to throw in there too. Gold is called a precious metal, but it's not scarce. It's not hard to. And you mentioned this, but I don't really think it's true. It's not hard to work with. It has one of the lowest melting points of any metal.
Mm-hmm.
So, in many respects, it's a poor store of value compared to Bitcoin. which you can't melt it, but it's hard to steal. It's easy to trace, and it does have a limited supply. So at least that topic compared to gold is makes it a better store of value. So anyway, it's just look, it's another Luddite. He owns gold. He's trying to pump it up, and he has a platform. People need to call him out for it, and I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. Last thing here too is that Bitcoin's actually mathematically scarce. If Elon just keeps going with the space exploration stuff and keeps us going, we go to different planets. Like it's probably gonna be a lot more gold. And we hit an asteroid and there's a crap ton of gold on it, then it's not as scarce anymore, and that massively decreases the price. So the same way, of course, Bitcoin has some technological risks, these other risks, but that is not like completely out of the question. Less than 0.001% risk for gold. It could happen for sure. So.
Yeah, like it's funny. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, we're reaching peak gold cycle and it's going to start going down like they do oil."
Mm.
You know, so anyway, yes, I agree. I disagree with him 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, we can look at the Bitcoin chart. We had a green
Oh
week. I
yes,
think there's some hopium coming back to the market for sure. People are kind of bullish, and this was a bit expected as rate cuts are nearing. People are forecasting about 75 basis points being cut by the end of the year, if I remember correctly what I read, which is not insignificant. So on that news, Bitcoin pumped about 8.94% this week. We are currently sitting at about $59,771, and we broke 60,000 for the first time in about a month. So it was a good week overall. I think people are feeling a little better. To me, I think we've reached the bottom in terms of market sentiment. But yeah, overall pretty good. How do you
yeah.
feel about that?
So look, I can't see it really well, but I want to see two or three green candles in a row. I mean, it's been at least, it looks like 3, 4, 5 months since we had three green candle weeks in a row. Looking back to the beginning of 2024. So let's string some together here. Let's get a little streak going. That's what
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
100%, 100%. I think the good thing about these periods of chop, just as kind of a side note here, periods of sideways or even down, is prices aren't going up, so you're not euphoric. So you have to look around for things that are interesting and reestablish why you are bullish on the assets, bullish on the technology, and what you actually want to focus on in the space. Because when everyone's making money and it's up only, it's just easy to have a good time. But this really, in the bear markets generally, weed out the people who are only here for the money. It lets you kind of reevaluate, reassess how you feel. And I think that's good. So
Yeah.
hopefully we do break out of here and continue higher. But I just want to leave that note there as a positive thing about the sideways chop we've experienced.
Yeah, 100%. Ben, on that note, our friends at Codex posted a tweet yesterday that said something in it that I agree with, and that was, you know, maybe the adults are taking the market over now. People, I hope so. This is something I hope. People that want to see value, want to see earnings, want to see a plan. And maybe these times, these 6 months, weed out all the charlatans, and there's actual business guys in here trying to create these companies and find value. Um, and hopefully that's what's happening.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think that the charlatans, as you say, and the people here for purely profits are never going to go away because it's an open system where you can build anything, and it really is the world's greatest casino. So I don't think they'll ever leave, but I think you hopefully will see more real builders and business people come into the space as we continue to be legitimized. And I think Wall Street's acceptance of the space over the last year is going to help that a lot. And yeah, so we'll see. I don't think
Yeah.
they'll leave, but hopefully that becomes the main focal point because we have these narratives in crypto where it's weird. I wanted to dive into this in a newsletter, but it's this weird psychology where everyone knows that the narrative like is vaporware. It's actually not real at all. Everyone knows that, but they're just trying to get more money out of this hot ball of money that's spinning around in the space and to get ahead of the narrative and then basically dump on everyone else because everyone knows like let's say for example earlier in the cycle like a few months back AI was really hot. All the AI tokens were mooning. No one thought these things were going to be used anytime soon. There was no reason for them to go up, but it's a narrative and people play on that. So that's just that being the focal point of crypto is something that I think needs to end in where we actually focus more so on the use cases. But it is what it is. It goes back to the same idea also of maybe all this speculation casino is how we bootstrap the technology, and then it funds the builders in, let's say, developing countries who are building this core technology that people really need it to survive and live. And this is just what comes with it. So
Yep.
that's a thought I had.
Well, that's a good thought, and something that ties right into that. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my Discord friends who works for one of these protocols, and he said that they are getting a massive influx of people from kind of Southeast Europe, Turkey area, as well as Africa, Nigeria, and those places that are now they didn't experience, I guess, the first DeFi summer, and now they're learning more about crypto, and they have more access to it, and there's all this interest from those folks um, to get into the space. So that that's sort of like what you said. Maybe we can develop apps for them that help their specific cases, and that's how we go forward on the on the big scale.
Yeah, and I think we actually already have. We're just in the West. We're in the United States, so we just see this
Yeah.
part of the industry. There are people in South America, like in Argentina and Brazil and places like this, who well-adjusted, normal people who are getting their paychecks and using these crypto companies, these maybe fintech apps with crypto on the back
Yeah.
end to access stable coins and dollars and save like that. And that's normal
Yep.
people. It's not crypto degens, tech people, and that's happening. We just don't see it. So I think that is encouraging at the very least, and pretty cool to see the technology actually helping people instead of just all this vaporware
Absolutely.
around money around.
Absolutely.
So with that, we can move on. Do you want to look at any other charts? You want to look at the ETH chart? You want to look at any other charts?
Uh, we don't need to look at the ETH chart necessarily. And now you have this in. I definitely want to talk about cbBitcoin, cbBTC at some
Yeah.
point. And I don't know if that's the ETH chart or not, but whatever you want to do next, but I'm good for.
All right. We can. What I'm going to do is pull up the newsletter here. Let's do this, and we can go through the midweek newsletter that I send out on Thursday mornings and look at the news stories there and decide what we want to do. So
Yeah.
first thing, I don't think we need to dive too far into this, but Bernstein predicted Bitcoin price of 80 to 90K if Trump wins and 30 to 40K if Harris is elected. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I don't think Bitcoin will be particularly that affected. I think like the macro cycle and interest rate cuts are really driving it right now. I think the Bitcoin will be fine either way because of that. Maybe it pumps a bit more if Trump wins, but I think there are parts of the market that could face some downward price pressure if Harris wins, just because of the uncertainty at the beginning about how she's going to treat like the more innovative tech use cases. So it
Yep.
depends how she ends up reacting, and if she does win, what her actual policy is towards crypto. But initially, it could be the case that we see some downward pressure. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I tend to agree with it'll be due to uncertainty more than anything else. The market loves certainty, so I think as soon as there's certainty on what she's going to do if she wins, I think everything will be okay. But until that happens, there'll definitely be price pressure down that will hopefully be counteracted by the interest rate cuts, which the stock market is now strongly pricing in a half of 50 basis point cut in September or October, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think 3/4 of a point by the end of the year is very doable.
Yeah, 100%. You've been saying that for a while, and I tend to agree. Like, Bitcoin is this global liquidity sponge. As credit gets cheaper, there's more money sloshing around in the global economy. Bitcoin sucks it
Yep.
up, and I think that is a really key driver. Like, if you look at global liquidity and Bitcoin chart, they just track each other. So that thesis
Yep.
holds. I think we could see a very good 2025. But okay,
Yep.
next topic. So this was kind of crazy. So Tether, the stablecoin issuer, the issuer of USDT, made more money than BlackRock last year. So Tether reported a $6.2 billion profit, which is nuts, first of all, in 2023. And BlackRock, this is $700 million more dollars than BlackRock made. And Tether has 120 employees, and BlackRock has 26,000 employees. So that's pretty crazy. Any reactions to that?
I saw that headline, and the first thing I thought was they're going to get bought. BlackRock's going to buy Tether. Somebody's going to buy Tether.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
why would you sell it though if you're printing money like that?
Well, there's earnout, there's stuff like that. I mean, this guy's going to be able to walk away with what 150, 200 billion dollars
Yeah, that's a good point.
with no hassle. Don't have to deal with the government anymore. All that stuff.
Yeah,
So that's part one that I thought. Second part I thought was, well, Larry's not dumb. Is BlackRock going to come up with BUSD or USDB? You know, the
yeah,
BlackRock version of this. I mean, he does have 10 trillion in assets to collateralize any coin he wants to make.
yeah.
So that was the second thing I thought. But it's interesting. It's a legit app. They're making legit money. They're first mover. Good for them.
Yeah, 100%. It would be interesting to me. Like BlackRock is an asset manager, right? So they have these funds where they manage assets, and right now, like the assets they manage are these ETFs, and they're relatively simple products. There's no like active
Mm-hmm.
management of the funds, really. It's like you can buy it. They have to buy Bitcoin to like back the shares that they're issuing. That's basically it. And now they're proposing some like Ethereum and Bitcoin ETFs, and that's relatively simple. But they also have actively managed funds that you can buy a lot of the time. And it would be interesting to see if in these funds, say they want to move to cash, if they kind of had stable coins in that portfolio or had their own stable coin that they would convert that cash to so that they could run it in like DeFi yield strategies or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So like part of the portfolio is in Bitcoin, ETH, whatever other coins, and then meanwhile they're generating returns on cash using a stable coin that they have, which would be pretty interesting. And then I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure how the regulatory framework works, but I've also heard potential that banks issue their own stable coin, and that's like one of the potential avenues for like a stable coin bill is that the government really wants to um, make it clear that they want the banks issuing the stable coin. So I'm not sure how that would shake out. I don't know much about it, but that's something to think about. I agree that
So
that'd be
Ben,
cool.
yeah. So Ben, on that topic, I mean, what it seems like a bank could issue a stable coin that's collateralized by mortgages, for example. You
Yeah.
know, and it pays. You know, well, I guess it doesn't pay. I guess it would rebase or something like that. But it's a very good way to open up those real world assets into value. And I mean, the most basic thing is why can't I pay $100 to the bank and have it issue me a PNC Bank backed stable coin that is backed by the equity of my house?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I mean, what instead of having the equity locked in the house, illiquid, the equity is locked in a stable coin that I put in Coinbase and earn 5% on.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, there's some danger in that, obviously, for unsophisticated investors and people that think it's free money. But that's I don't know. That seems like a simple way to move into real world assets in a regulated environment, which I
Yeah.
think is important for that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That'd be super cool. And this just underscores like our view, I think, that tokenization is actually crypto's killer use case. It really is. Like, because if you can get the regulatory frameworks in place and offer these things, it's just super cool. The issue is that one, like, it's very hard to get like regulation passed just because Washington moves very slow just by the nature of it. And we talked about why that might be good and bad sometimes. Um,
Yep.
but then also these banks and big finance doesn't necessarily have an incentive to innovate, so they're the last ones to innovate at all times almost. So it's a while, and right now you do see like fintechs offering these services, like PayPal's stablecoin has gotten a
Hmm.
lot of adoption, and I think that's where we're going to see these type of use cases first before they actually get ingrained into like the big players like PNC, Goldman, and
Yeah.
others.
Ben, it's interesting. The big investment banks might actually have an advantage over people like BlackRock there because they have they know banking. That's their history is banking. So that could be a competitive advantage for those folks in this landscape. So that'll be, man. I just got excited about this now, Ben. I just got
Yeah,
excited about this. We need to start another company to do
I
this
know.
sort of RWA stuff.
Yeah, I hope we see it. I hope we see it relatively soon. We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, lots of potential.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
Next thing similar to that, this is kind of cool. So EtherFi, which I found is kind of weird, honestly, but EtherFi is launching a Visa Cash card on Scroll Network. So like just that together was super random. Like EtherFi launching a card itself is kind of random. Then on Scroll felt random as well. And for people who don't know, EtherFi is a liquid restaking protocol. So I don't really, it was really unexpected that they were going to do this. And I didn't even know they were operating on Scroll either, which is kind of a not one of the biggest, but an emerging and developing L2 ecosystem on Ethereum. So any thoughts on this?
I think a year ago it would have been much bigger news than it was. I think a lot of these blockchains are looking for use, and maybe this is Scroll's use. I think EtherFi probably is looking to maybe up their profile a little bit because Easy ETH and Renzo sort of has had a lot of headlines. I read through this, and I don't know if it was this article or another one that said they're providing 8% cash back, which seemed crazy to me.
This says 3 on the headline, but I don't know.
I know.
You read something
I read
else?
somewhere.
Like
Yeah, I read something else. They're boosting it. The other thing I don't understand about it is you definitely have to deposit your assets on EtherFi, I guess, on Scroll, but it's unclear how those get redeemed or if they get redeemed at all. And it's just a collateralized loan. So, I'd have to do a little more digging into that, but it's definitely very cool. Definitely very cool.
Yeah, I like the effort. I like the products being made, like DeFi, CeFi type of stuff. So I agree. I don't have many thoughts on this. Just wanted to bring this up in case anyone was interested. Not financial advice, but if you want to check it out, EtherFi, Scroll, Visa, Google it. You'll find it. We'll see how this works out whenever it's launched. But moving on, the next big news of the week. I know you were waiting for this. You were really excited about this one. I know you were. Trump.
All right.
Trump, his DeFi platform. It's going live on Monday. You're going to be an early user, right? So
I will probably go on the Discord.
Yeah. So Trump announces the launch date of World Liberty Financial, which is this Monday, September 16th. I think this is a terrible idea. Again, just for Trump's chances, because what's the upside? Like, he has a lot of money already. Like, I don't understand. And he already has the crypto vote. So it doesn't really seem like much of a benefit. And the downside is basically unlimited. But any more thoughts on that? Any more thoughts on this?
No, I mean, it's his kids doing it. It's not him or some version of his kids. And the good news here is, if I recall correctly, it's the Aave back end and World Liberty Financial's the front end. Am I remembering correctly?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Yeah. But I generally agree. I mean, every hacker in the world is going to be trying to hack this. So I think the downside is very, very high. I'm sure he'll have someone to blame if it does get hacked, which will be more interesting than eating pets. But to me, it's a no op. I don't really care.
Yeah, no, me too. I just think it's a terrible idea. It'll be entertaining nonetheless.
Yes.
It'll be entertaining. That's the one thing. Like, say what you want about politics in the United States right now. You cannot say that it's not entertaining, because it is.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
While we're on politics, I want to bring up a little story, because I was on Discord during the debate a little bit, and it was among people from around the world. And literally in the debate, Trump is telling Europe that we're not going to help you unless you start bucking up. Yet people from literally Ukraine want to vote for this guy. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, if that happens, the next thing that's going to happen is he'll find a way around Article 5, and all you guys are going to be, standing alone. I don't know. It just, Trump has some kind of magnetism that draws people from around the world to like him, maybe because of his belligerence and mouth. But it's like they put aside their own personal well-being to support this guy. Not that Harris is great, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to threaten NATO.
Okay, I'm not going to comment on Ukraine because, like, as an American, there's a lot of issues in the country that we could be directing billions in resources to. So I'm not going to go into that. That's just a slight offhand comment. And I agree with you. I don't understand, as a Ukrainian, why you would support the person who wouldn't give you fund. Like, it's self-interest, right? Like, you're going
Yeah.
to support the people who are giving you money. Whether that's the best thing for America is a different conversation. Nonetheless, I saw a tweet, and I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, I think the reason that people like Trump at the core is because he's not part of the quote unquote establishment. Because the Democrats right now certainly are. And you see, like, Naval Ravikant, the VC investor in crypto, he had a tweet. He was like, when Cheney, Clinton, Biden's, whatever, all line up on the same side, that's the establishment. And it's true. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the Democrats were saying, hey, like, look at all these like Republicans, these establishment career politician Republicans lining up behind Kamala. Like, it's a good thing. Of course, it's not a good thing. It's the establishment. It's like a cabal. It's the deep state, as people like to call it. And people like Trump because he's at core very populist. Like, the MAGA movement, whenever he was first elected in 2016, was extremely populist, and he was all the way out there, and he was really distasteful to build that core base. Now I think he's toned it back a bit to be more moderate. But I think the key allure is that he can't be bought by the establishment, and it's like something that's different. And I think that's the main reason why people are willing to overlook his other and many character flaws to support him, from my perspective. And that's, it's true. That is an allure that he has. Like, even for me, it's like, he's not part of this. He's not fake. You can't even say he's fake, because the things he says, like, he just says what he thinks. And he's not like a good person. He doesn't seem to have the best morals or the best manners, or he's not even very likable. He's funny, but not very likable. But he is saying what he thinks. And that is something, because you can't say that for a lot of other politicians. And I don't think you can say that for the Democrats, because over the last year, they've shown that they have said things that are not true, and they gaslight you into saying they're true, or into thinking they're true when they're not. So I think that's like the key thing.
I would say that you're correct on the establishment side, but the critical, in my opinion, error in that thinking is this is the right time to not support the establishment.
Why is that?
Because the alternative to the establishment is worse than the establishment.
I mean, I guess that's the bet people are making. It's whether you think it is or not. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. It just depends what you think. And I guess we'll see. That's the whole debate in the United States. Like, the one thing to close it off here, because I don't want to talk too much about politics, is that it is like a mess. The whole debate, if you go back and look at debates, like Obama versus Romney was the clip that was circulating.
Oh, it's crazy.
Very cordial. They were like, you see, me and Barack here agree on a lot. There's just some small policy differences that we'd like to talk about. And then very cordial. And now it's just them saying the bad things about the other person. It's just a mess. So I don't know. I can't wait for the election cycle to be over. It'll be good for markets once there's certainty. And yeah, hopefully we have a month and a half, couple months left. So we're nearing the end of it.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Enough on that. Let's move on. Well, I think the big news that I want to talk a lot about, at least get your thoughts on, is, I mentioned this earlier, the Coinbase basically going full in on making a wrapped Bitcoin like more credible than it's ever been. And sort of, I don't know if this is the right context for the word, but sort of rugging Justin Sun and whatever his Bitcoin was on Tron.
Okay. I know you're talking about Tron. Justin Sun did not have like a wrapped Bitcoin product on Tron. What was happening was that like the WBTC product was its custody was being moved over to Justin Sun for some reason. Like, it was associated with him. He was being added to the, like, wrapped Bitcoin was used mostly on Ethereum, I believe. I don't know how much it was used on Tron actually, but he was involved. And I think Coinbase saw that as a market opportunity. And I don't think, like, that happened a few weeks ago. So I think it was just good timing for them announcing this product, because they had to have been working on it for a while. But at the core, I think it's great, because if you hold Bitcoin at Coinbase, you're already trusting them anyways. So it's not like you have to trust these other actors. Coinbase is very reputable. People hold lots of Bitcoin there anyways. And now you can just get on-chain functionality, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. like you said, there was definitely a buildup because instantly within a day or two of the Coinbase announcement, cbBTC was available on nearly every lending platform and DEX that I frequent, which was good to see. And help me out. Bitcoin has a market cap approximately 5, 10, 20 times ETH at this point, something like that, in the trillions for sure.
No, it's about 3 times Ethereum.
3 times.
Yeah.
So the DeFi landscape just got a potential infusion of 3 times more capital. Now, of course, it's self-serving for Coinbase too, because that has to go through Coinbase if you want to use their product, which probably is the most trustworthy product on the market at this point, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely. Coinbase is great. I think it'll be a really good product. The key question will be how much demand there actually is for using Bitcoin on chain, because I guess the argument is if you're holding Bitcoin on Coinbase, you don't really have you don't have all of the properties of like self-custodying, of censorship, or like it's with Coinbase, they're custodying it. So
Right.
presumably you're the type of person who would also use it in DeFi. But I don't know what that ceiling is. I don't know how many people really want to use Bitcoin in DeFi because we seem to reach a limit. I don't know what the number was previous to this product. And maybe this new CB Bitcoin product unlocks like the next leg of that demand because it's more trustworthy, as you mentioned. But we will see. I think that's the main question. And if it does succeed and people really do want it, this will be a really big revenue driver, I think, for Coinbase. I'm actually not sure if or how they're making money on this. Did you read about that at all?
Yeah, there's no fee to create cbBTC, but you have read the money they're making just on base, on the sequencer fees and things like that, which isn't a ton compared to their other business, but clearly this will help that.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that you're going to get with cbBTC is transparency. They're a public company. You got to know the question's going to be asked if they don't report it. Hey, how's cbBTC going on their conference calls? And they're going to probably need to answer that, or at least document it somewhere.
Yeah, no, 100% they will. That's definitely going to be a thing they're going to have to talk about. But I agree. I think who knows, maybe it's just cool nonetheless. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
That's the one
Now,
thing.
let me ask you this, Ben.
Yeah.
What if you're a Bitcoin L2 developer? I think this is sort of a blow to them, right? I mean, why? Those L2s are so less developed than this entire ecosystem of Ethereum L2s that I think that's a huge blow.
100%, because the way a lot of these Bitcoin L2s operate also is like Bitcoin is typically, not always, but typically the gas token, or is like the most heavily used coin in DeFi on these Bitcoin L2s. And so there's like a step there where you have to get the Bitcoin from mainnet to the L2 somehow. And I don't know, like each of them do it differently, but there is some risk there because that's like a bridging action in and of itself. And then if you want to get that Bitcoin from those L2 ecosystems to Ethereum or other chains, there's another leap there in terms of who you have to trust and all of that. And Bitcoin and CB Bitcoin just being custodied by Coinbase, it's just right there on their network, eliminates all of that. So like, I think that's a huge blow to these Bitcoin L2s. And it's like, why use a Bitcoin L2 with all of these, like less of a developed ecosystem, less funding behind it because it's an independent product when you could just do the same thing on base.
Yeah.
So I agree. We'll see how that plays out though.
Exactly. And hey, last thing on that, base is part of what, Ben?
Superchain.
Superchain, baby.
That's
Superchain,
why
baby.
We're gonna next topic.
Are we Superchain maxis?
Probably, yeah, probably. I don't know if I'm a maxi because I like other ecosystems too, and I do think I'd like to see. I don't know the specifics of how much they're working on ZK Tech, but from what I understand, the ZK Tech is going to be it's the end game. It's just more efficient. It's better chains. So I don't know if they're working on that, but that's the one thing that I would like to see out of the Superchain that I have not yet.
Yeah. So ZK enabled rollups. All right. Well, we'll get back to that. It's a little geeky, but this is something that's sort of my background a little bit in what they're doing, and part of it I love to see. part of it hugely scared of AI running rampant. And we're going to have an opportunity, I think, here in the next week or so to get more details on this. But this was a big announcement today from Mode Network, which is also part of the Superchain, which is going full into AI within their ecosystem, starting small, starting with things like helping users get onboarded using AI to customize their strategies. But if you scroll down a little further, you'll see within a year they're going to have a couple things which I think are crazy cool, crazy scary. One is the scary part and cool part is AI to AI or agent to agent interactions on Mode without human intervention. So agents operating with other agents to maximize yield, execute strategies, things like that. And let's see, I think that probably is the AI to AI financial services about a year and 3 months from now, Q4 2025. The other very cool thing though is they're going to use AI to help secure the sequencer. And the way I view that, and I want some feedback here, Ben, to make sure I'm viewing this right, is that AI is very similar in my mind to how credit card companies work now with fraud detection. They monitored the transactions and preemptively, before they get executed, detect if it's fraud. And in the credit cards case, call me and say, hey, is this correct? We're going to hold your card until you tell us. I'm assuming in the sequencer's case, sort of reject transactions and let the user know, hey, what's going on here? Because it looks suspicious. So I think that's a like ultra cool way to use AI if what I'm thinking about is correct.
Yeah, no, 100%. That makes sense. The way like most of these optimistic rollups, of which the OP stack chains are, is usually you have like it's code, of course, but there's like a time period for which you can dispute transactions that have already been submitted and
Yep.
pre-verified or pre-settled through the
Yep.
sequencer before they settle on mainnet, and then you can dispute that. But if you have AI bots that learn and are paying attention to the transactions on the network and can kind of see suspicious activity before it occurs, that would be pretty cool. And that makes sense to me. So I didn't know they were doing that as well. On the note of the AI to AI financial services, I think that's super cool too. I have a hard time visualizing in my mind like how this would work. It's like, does everyone have an AI that acts upon their behalf, and then they say something? You can use like maybe a ChatGPT type interface to say, I want to do this. I am aiming to get my money here, 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 or send it to this person, and then it can just execute that. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out, but it's a cool idea. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and the thing that I need to find out more on is, our friends at Codex are definitely in this space too. They're on Mode through Ironclad. So I'm wondering if they're involved here, but certainly the intent-based, I think they called it agentic front end,
Mm.
of taking normal users' requests like earn me 8% on my USDC and converting that into actionable things without having to, um, approve 17 transactions, find which app I want to go to, is something that I think the first step of Mode and their AI-Fi roadmap is going to accomplish. And I think a big part of that also, though, is the Superchain smart wallets. And I don't know the right word, but I call it session-based approvals, where you can give an approval to your wallet for a certain number of things, a certain time, certain something, and all those transactions can be executed on your behalf.
Yeah,
So I think we're building up some smart stuff now.
100%. The thing that just popped into my mind was like, okay, right now you think about the process to say like it's football weekend. Like, say you want to put like $100 on your favorite team, whatever it is. You have to, if you
Yeah,
don't have money in your account there already, you have to like initiate a transfer on usually like the DraftKings app or whatever it is, and then you have to like scroll through, like look at the lines, like whatever. You could
yeah,
just like talk to an AI on your phone that had like access to your crypto enabled like bank account, your savings account here. Say you have like yield bearing stable coins in a money market, and then there's like this other like sports book app on the super chain or whatever. You just tell your agent, you're like, hey, move $100 out of or 100 USDC out of
yeah,
Aave or whatever it is, and put it on the the Indiana Hoosiers to cover the spread or whatever it is, and it just does it automatically
Yep.
for you instead of you having to like click all these buttons, withdraw money out of like your savings account, move it to a checking account, then put it in there. You can just do it like that. I think that's really cool.
Very cool. And so I love all that. The other side of me, though, kind of being in this field, is like, I want to see, and we'll talk about this more, I hope, next week in an interview we hope we have, the sensitivity analysis. How do you know, how do you bound the AI to what, what it knows, and not to, quote, hallucinate and do something completely off the rails? Because there's no way, absolutely no way you can train these things on the entire possible universe of what they might encounter. So I think there's some ways to do that, particularly in the example we talked about in betting. When you start to talk about AI to AI interactions, though, that are happening without any human interaction, as I read this and I've heard a little bit about it, you need to be a little bit more careful. There need to be some guardrails there. You need to, have robust simulation environments. You need to have robust limitations on what they can do. The hooks that applications are providing to AI bots need to be limited, right? They need to be, very, very well tested in a traditional sense. So, I think it's very exciting. I think that people need to be very careful, though, in developing these things.
Yeah, 100%. I think like the one thing that comes to mind is that whenever we interviewed Conclave founder Justin Bibas, he basically said that like blockchain's determinism kind of acts as a counterbalance to like
Mm-hmm.
AI's pervasiveness, and it kind of constrains it in a certain way. Because let's say like an AI on a blockchain can't do anything that it doesn't have the private keys for. So it can't like go and steal stuff. It can't do certain things. And I think it might be easier like within this structure to embed the AIs as opposed to like in real world systems outside where there's actually less determinism. Like blockchains are pretty deterministic. It is all code. There are rules that need to be followed. And I think putting AI into the blockchain environment makes a lot of sense. So I think that's the one good thing there.
Yeah, well, I'm very curious to see and ask this question if these AIs are going to have the keys, because my understanding in reading this and listening is they will be autonomously executing transactions amongst themselves.
Well,
So
they need
maybe
on a
maybe
blockchain. They need to have the keys, though. That's how it works, right?
yeah,
They
that's
need
what I
to
mean.
sign transactions.
Exactly.
Yes, I guess
Um,
they'll have to, right?
yeah. So maybe there'll be special playgrounds that the AIs can live in that are subsets of the blockchain. I don't know. We just need to find out,
Yeah.
because it's very interesting, potentially very cool, potentially very dangerous.
Yeah. On that note, too, ChatGPT or OpenAI one is
Yeah.
trying to raise. I forget how much. It's like $150 billion or something.
Yes.
Something nuts.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's crazy. But they also just released this week a new model. Did you? I sent
Yep.
you something about that. Have you seen it? Do you have ChatGPT? Have you tried it
Yeah.
out? You
Yeah.
have.
I
Yeah.
use ChatGPT.
Do you have the O1 though? Because I paid for it, so I get like the models and everything.
No, I don't have O1. I just read about O1. PhD level reasoning,
Yeah,
particularly on science and math apps.
nuts. Yeah, it's like in the 90th percentile of certain coding tests and something crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it also they challenge it. They basically had to participate in a capture the flag hack experiment type of thing. And I'm not familiar with it, but basically it needs to hack something and retrieve some key that some system has. But the test itself was misconfigured and did not boot properly. But the O1 model figured that out, like figured out how to redeploy the test and then ended up going through some back door to capture the flag and get this key, like something completely outside of the scope of the actual challenge. So it solved it with reasoning not native to the problem. So I'll send that to you. That was pretty nuts. And I believe it. I've been using it to code this week, and it's very good. And last note, the one key change they made with this model, and the thing that makes it interesting, is that it thinks for an extended period of time before it gives you an answer. So I assume it's doing some recursive process where it thinks, goes through it again, tries to identify errors, and then does that multiple times until it's confident enough in its answer. So
So Ben, you're probably I mean, I know you're not old enough to remember when this came out, but what you described it doing for this competition is exactly how SkyNet took over all of our nuclear missiles in the first Terminator movie.
No, yeah,
It thought about it, found a back door, hacked its way in, and got control.
yeah,
Um, that's, I mean, that's freaking crazy. First off, it's just nuts that it can do that. But it also, shows how quickly the technology is evolving. The other thing I'm going to say, and Mom and I were talking about this this week, is that if you're not an elite level engineering school, the need for formal, training and coding is like dropping precipitously.
mm-hmm.
Um, and kind of the conversation we had was there's going to be this push back to liberal arts. It's already happening. We're seeing these. If you follow this in the U.S., there's a giant influx of students to major liberal arts universities, like not the small ones, which are sort of capacity limited, but like Indiana, for example, has gained a 33% enrollment in like 8 years as liberal arts students flock to these large universities. So it's sort of interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how the more technical oriented schools, or at least those colleges in bigger schools, react to this, because unless you're an MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Tech, Berkeley, Stanford level school with those elite thinkers, how are you going to compete if you're just teaching computer science?
Yeah, no, I agree. I have the opinion that most universities, like there's going to be far fewer universities in the United States in 20 years because like even
Yeah.
in these liberal arts domains, if AI keeps improving at the rate it does, you literally have a personal teacher. And of course, you want to talk to humans in real life, but those can be your peers. And then if it is so smart, it's undoubtedly, and it's improving at the rate it does, and it continues to do that.
Yeah.
It's undoubtedly going to be better than any professor that you get at a university. Why are you paying this much money when you have a super intelligence basically for free here? So what you need really is like a community of peers to maybe create these things, to be creative, and then you use this as like a guide. So I think the university education is super overpriced generally. If it were a stock,
Yeah.
I would short it right now. And a lot of that is because of administrative bloat and all these other things. But still, I think it will fundamentally change what's going on. But it's interesting. There's two prongs to it, right? Like right, it's really good at coding. So for like computer science specifically, that was a terrible major to go into in the last 5 years because like everything you learn is basically automated now. Like you want some other
Yeah.
outside knowledge, and then you want to be technical enough to be able to use the tools. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you see like these Hollywood protests, which is like these creatives. They're protesting because the image generating AIs, the video generating AIs are getting so good that it's going to look radically different. And like one person is going to be able to create a full length feature film by like
Yeah.
interacting with an AI, writing the script back and forth, maybe talking to some other people. But you don't actually have to film anything. Like, so what happens there? Like, what if novels are written in the same way? I think it like in the near term, it is impacting like computer science students specifically, but over the longer term, it is a very fundamentally radical technology that's changing a lot of things. And it's unclear how it's going to impact industry, impact, tech, impact creatives. So I think it goes both ways, but that is an interesting point nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. Well, I think we're going to see. I think we're going to talk, Ben, a lot more over the next year or two about AI in crypto and in the real world. This is just the beginning. We're still at the beginning of that. I'm convinced we're at the beginning. Now,
yeah,
if it hacks into the global ballistic missile capacity, maybe we're also at the end. But certainly, it's going to be exciting one way or the other.
yeah. The last thing here that's interesting too is that like the way that AIs have become super smart mostly is through these large language models. So we just give it a bunch of words and it's basically like found patterns and connections in the words. And it appears to have established some baseline understanding just from like reading or getting enough language. So I don't know. That's just interesting to me because it implies that like you would think that the system would have to have some understanding of like the physical world. You need to put it into an embodied system to like interact with things,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the case at all. If you give it like words, which are just an abstraction of our experience and their stories about what we do, and we narrate it, it can learn that way. So I think that's just like an interesting insight, and that's what's kicked off the AI revolution. And then the next step actually might be to embody them. So what happens whenever you give these LLMs with abstract knowledge, put them in Boston Dynamics humanoid robot, give them that sensory feedback from its environment in doing things, and then also it has this abstract knowledge, and that's what it's operating on. I don't know what happens, but that's kind of crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
what's next, bud?
that's about it.
We're coming down to the end. All right. Well, I think this is a good episode. Be sure to check out the next set of educational videos coming out from Ionic. It's starting to get to the good stuff on really how to do stuff. I think how to supply was a couple weeks ago, and to borrow and do the basics there. So if you're a new crypto user, be sure to check those out. We're in the process of lining up another very cool video, another high-profile player in the Superchain, which we're very excited about, and hopefully that'll be happening here in the next week or so to come with that. Ben, anything from your end?
Trying to think, not really. No, excited for the stuff that we have upcoming. Yeah, happy to work with the Ionic guys. Happy that we have gotten to know a lot of the people in the Superchain ecosystem. I think they're doing a lot of good things, like Coinbase, base chain, part of the Superchain, like Modes, AI roadmap, part of the Superchain, Ionic, part of the Superchain, everything. So happy to get to know those people. I think they're doing a lot of good, and I think it aligns with, in this ecosystem, aligns with what we want to see out of crypto. The more positive some use cases, not just chasing around the hot ball of money, which of course it's great to make money, but feeling like you're trying to help build something is also great. So shout out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Codex guys too, and the Ironclad guys, also part of the Superchain, doing good AI stuff. So, we're very appreciative of all the friends we have. Love getting their messages out, and actually love just giving our takes on stuff and where we go from here.
Yeah, 100%. I hope hopefully we can keep this going on YouTube, grow a little bit more, so people go onto YouTube and search crypto, and then they don't get like these random dudes like BitBoy or whoever else it was popping up, just talking about the next 1000x meme coin. It is what it is.
Exactly. And, on that note, while we're just BSing here, this past week, actually used some AI to create some shorts on YouTube, and some of those continue, those 1 minute sound bites continue to be some of the most watched stuff out there. And I guess that speaks to the short attention span of the average YouTube user. But some good stuff, not paid shills here, just kind of doing the work and all that kind of stuff. So it's all good.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully, if I get some more time here, I'd like to make some other YouTube videos, shorter videos maybe, just explaining stuff that's going on in crypto, because that seems to be what's getting a lot of views. Because this is more long form, and it's good as a podcast,
Yeah.
But I think some shorter stuff does get the attention of the people on YouTube, on TikTok, and stuff. So who knows? But yeah, it's all good.
It's the internet capitalist on YouTube is who we're looking for, right?
The internet capitalists. Yeah. So.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Well, that's all we got. We will see you next week.
Sounds good. Yeah. See you guys. Have a good one.